Yo, what's good people? Today I'm going to show you how to mod your gamer finger buttons. So actually I built myself a new levelless controller and I have all gamer finger buttons. Apart from these are Punk Workshop buttons because I actually didn't have any more 24mm to go at the top. So I just settled for Punk Workshop, but actually I think they go well because they have Chaos Silent pinks. And I think the pink really kind of goes well as an accent color with the Sakura gamer fingers that I have here. But anyway, earlier today I changed the switches in the gamer fingers to Kale Speed Silvers. In the gamer fingers stock comes Cherry Speed Silvers, and I actually prefer Kale Speed Silvers, so that's why I kind of switched. I actually have nth KRMs which also use Kale Speed Silvers, and honestly I just prefer to, I don't know, it's just like about kind of the smoothness of the buttons. I also get less double button input errors, so when I'm pressing 1+2 for throw breaking, I get way less input errors, double button input errors using Kale Speed Silvers than Cherry. So that's why I decided to switch. So I actually have a KRM, super premium button. I really like these and the texture's great. So these have, can't see it, I'm going to take the cap off so you can see it, but these have Kale Speed Silvers and these are really good. So here I've taken the cap off. As you can see, this is a Kale Speed Silver. And it's just the smoothness while pressing it. The smoothness is really nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really like the Cherry Speed Silvers. I just think, you know, Kale Speed Silvers are just slightly better in terms of kind of smoothness of actuation, and therefore I get less input errors when I'm using something like an all button controller. Okay, what do we need to take apart this gamer finger? So right here, I have a very small flathead screwdriver. Not sure if it's going to pick up on camera, but this is a very small flathead, as you can see, quite small. So get a relatively small flathead, and there's these kind of gaps, as you can see here. So this gap, you want to just use something to pry up to remove the cap. So now the cap's off, as you can see, and inside is the switch. Now we want to look at the back now. Turn it over and you can see that there's a small circle where the switch is actually fastened to the housing. So we want to use something very thin to kind of push, and it does require a little bit of force, but don't worry because the casing is very sturdy, so you're probably not going to break it. Just don't go too crazy with the force. I mean, it does take a little bit of force, so we're going to attempt to, and I like to kind of hold it like this to where the switch can't fly out, but I'm going to use the same tool to press in, try and show you what I'm pressing in here that way so that the switch can kind of be ejected from the housing. So switch just pops right out like this. Can see Cherry Silver. So now you're left with the casing with the foam. There are these kind of, I'm not sure how well you can see that on camera, but there's these, so basically these pins that kind of come out the back, so these two prongs, they are fastened with these kind of bent metal parts in the case. So as you can see, it has two pins. Try and focus it so you can see. Can you see those two pins? So it has two pins. Same with the Cherry. I'm going to put them side by side. You can see I'm really trying to focus so you can actually see the pins, but the pin layout is the same. So this switch is compatible with gamer finger. So you can fasten the switches the same way the Cherry switches are fastened. So what we're going to do now is we're going to line up these pins. So again, it's two prongs. It's not helping because the case is kind of like an off-white, so it doesn't have good contrast, but we're going to line up these two pins with the kind of bent pins in the casing. So there's actually, if you look, so it has a cutout in the case, and at the top, at the very top above the pins, there is a slot for these pins to slot into. So I'm going to line them up. This. And then literally just push down and see that now it's fastened. and then to put the cap back on. Now there is actually a specific way I believe that you put them back on. So if you have a snapping button, which this is, you're going to see two snapping they kind of eject out a little bit. So they're kind of like tabs that kind of blare out a little bit. I'm going to try and show you how they feel. As you can see, kind of flared a little bit. So you want to line up the large gaps. So you see how there's a large gap in the cap. So line up those large gaps with the flared bit. So like this. And then just push down. I like to kind of use the back of the button to fasten the switch to the cap. And now we have a gamer finger with a Kale Speed Silver. I mean, you can use any switch that kind of has the same body as a Cherry MX, to be specific, Cherry MX. These use Cherry MX switches, so just make sure that the switch you are going to try has the same footprint as Cherry MX. And it's not too tricky, just make sure that you don't force anything in, because you can actually break the pins of the switch. These are relatively fine, so I'm going to try and show you what I mean in terms of how they're fastened. So this prong comes out. Oh, this is perfect. This angle's perfect. So you can see, if you, I'm going to try and bring it slightly closer. So you can see how there's a flat bit on the other side of the housing. So that's how it's fastened. And then the two prongs of the actual switch you put in, they make contact with these pins, and then you connect your cables to ground and, I don't know, an attack button. That's usually the cabling style that, you know, we use for arcade enclosures and levelless enclosures and stuff like that. So yeah, quite simple. It's just don't use too much force when taking apart the button, and also when putting the button back together. So I hope you enjoyed. Peace.